My name,
Ladies and gentlemen, that you just saw is totally historically inaccurate. No, our ancestors did not act like that, in fact. Would you want to see how they rather acted?
Yes.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors during the Stone Age stood upright. In fact, it was our great ancestors, Homo erectus, who pioneered full-on standing upright. Even Homo habilis stood upright. Even Australopithecus stood upright at intervals, let's just say. Ladies and gentlemen, today we go all the way to the year 70,000 BC, to a time when humans left Africa. So, before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, a huge warm welcome since we last saw each other with season 1. Oh guys, we have gone through so much together. We began all the way with ancient Greece and went right up until the modern times. In our last show, we witnessed the events unfolding in New York on 11th of September, come to be known as 9/11. Now, with season 1 over and out the way, today we begin season 2 of Stone to Steam. Ladies and gentlemen, where we shall begin right at the roots of human history and travel up in time with the new set of outfits that I have made since. So many fun and educational surprises lie up ahead. So folks, thank you very much for coming. A warm welcome. 70,000 BC. This is such an important date in human history. Do you know why? The reason is because this is when we theorized humans left Africa en masse. So, whoops. I'm going to need this for just now. I'll pop it under the phone.
I mean, future machine. Strange future machine.
Forget that. Get that out your minds. I want you guys to get that 1960s caveman view out of your minds, all right? We're going to start totally fresh today, all right? So remember, humans, what does it mean to be human? Our origins go all the way back, well, many millions of years, to roughly about 3 million years ago. 3 million years ago was the time of Australopithecus. And these, they say, was when humans went from apes to humans. Australopithecus was the first hominin. A hominin is basically a creature with 4 limbs and human-like. That's where the word Homo sapiens comes from, hominin. That's when they theorized that Australopithecus went from being like an ape standing on all 4s to actually beginning to slowly start to stand and walking bipedally on 2 legs. This gave, hominins, Australopithecus, a huge advantage because now they could see further over the veldt in the grasslands of Africa. Remember, Australopithecus, that means southern ape. They came from Africa, the southern regions, they theorize. As Australopithecus slowly spread itself, they would eventually evolve over millions of years to become Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and eventually Homo sapiens. Homo sapiens, it is theorized that we sort of first appeared about 200,000 years ago. 200,000 years ago was when Homo sapiens started to become a thing, where humans as we recognize today were a thing. So think about it, you could have a decent conversation, despite the language barrier, with a hominin, a Homo sapiens from 200,000 years ago. You could literally have a decent conversation, maybe even a cup of tea if you're at it. But humans were still a bit different, and their technology and culture would be completely diverged from what it is today. And so fast forward 130,000 years, humans are staying in Africa, running around, foraging and hunting, becoming the dominant species. But now, 70,000 years ago, something happened that changed history forever.
Driving car.
Driving cars, sure. Maybe a Flintstone car, yes? Flintstone car. Get that out your heads. So, as I was saying, is 70,000 years ago, everything changed because the genetic record completely explodes. This is where we find traces of human DNA leaving Africa. And this is so important because, well, this is called the peopling of the world. This is where humans took over the whole of the world. It wasn't during the Industrial Revolution or the Digital Revolution or the medieval times or the ancient times. It was all the way in 70,000 BC. Remember, Homo erectus, about 2 million years ago, left Africa as well. They call this out of Africa 1. Out of Africa 2 is when Homo sapiens left Africa. Out of Africa 1 with Homo erectus saw that Homo erectus, a more primitive version of human, would leave and spread all over the world, which is why, remember how there's that classic story of Homo sapiens meeting Neanderthals? Neanderthals are the descendants of Homo erectus who were already there in Europe. So Homo erectus had already spread over the world. This was not the first time a hominin had spread, but the first time a Homo sapiens spread was 70,000 BC. Now, ladies and gentlemen, stay with me today to see the life of a man traveling out of Africa 72,000 years ago.
On
If
what?
you join me. On what?
Yeah.
On his feet. This is literally the mode of transport that every human has been using since then and way before.
Wow.
So quite fascinating, eh? All right, so without further ado, let us begin. Ipako, perka pakate. Istapako to strapatake. Sorry, English. We pretend I speak English so you understand the show. My name Gentle. Hello. We in my tribe, the Red Tribe, we name each other based on traits. So I am a gentle creature. I like to be quiet. So I, Gentle. Now, I have story from many months ago when I first left my home. You guys want to hear my story?
Yeah.
Ah, good, good. Sorry, English. Sorry. I mustn't speak my Proto-Indo-European language, which I'll explain later. Okay, let us begin the story, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
And we left our home for good. It was very sad to say goodbye to the place that I had known my entire life. There were many stories of faraway lands that my ancestors came from further to the west, a land of plenty. But many, many generations ago, they left their home, and here we are now in this dry land. But the water flows well here, many animals. We now turn our heads to the future, to see what lies up ahead. The tribe started to get hungry, so we needed to get food. We took our bows, stalked the prey, and as the deer was in sight, we draw and we shoot. When it not works, we use throwing spear. But mostly bow works. Bow was invented by great-great-grandparents. Very clever idea. New weapon to help hunt. Now we go track prey through the plains. As we walk and walk, we start to grow disheartened that prey will evade us. But Fierce keeps reminding us that we always outwalk our prey. He tells the new hunters, the boys, that this is how we've been hunting for many a generation. And Fierce was right. We find prey weakened, lying on grass. All we need to do is finish it off with our stone. When looking around, we wonder, are we in danger? We look, we see nothing, but we know lions roam these places. But ever since we use throwing spear and since we invent bow and arrow, we have nothing to fear. Until a lion ambushes us. The lion roars. The lion attacks. I quickly go find my throwing spear. I grab it in my hand, ready to throw, but lion too fast. I take my bow and arrow, look around, see nothing, until we hear a scream. We see Strong is dead. Strong is now carried away by lion. But Fierce shoots bow, hits lion. Lion drops Strong and dashes away fast. We run to Strong to see if he's okay. Strong is dead. Because we are in a hurry to get food back to tribe, we have no time to mourn Strong. Instead, we quickly bury him in rocks, and then we go. On the way back, we see footprints. Very bad omen. Footprints of the 𝐤𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 tribe. We form part of the Red tribe. My tribe, my home. But the 𝐤𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 tribe, they are nearby. And so we hurry up, quickly back with our food. But before we can get back home, we see a scout from the 𝐤𝐿𝐿 tribe. He freezes, we freeze. Not anyone knows what to do now. So we slowly make our way around the scout, only to find out that they were doing the same. 𝐤𝐿𝐿𝐿𝐿 tribe is hungry. We are hungry. They see we have food. They start to come towards us, but slowly they approach. So we quickly lay low, hiding. But it's too late. They see us. So we start to run. We run, we run, we run. We take bows, look behind us, fire a few arrows. This does not scare Yellow Ochre tribe. So we realize that we must stop and face them. Fierce tells us to stop, turn around, take bows in hands, look big, shout, shout. We're all shouting, we're all shouting. We start to fire more arrows, but Yellow Ochre tribe also fires arrows into us. One arrow scrapes my leg, but one of throwing spear fierce lands and kills Yellow Ochre man. He's dead. They start to back off. They know we too many. They run away. We were very lucky that day that we decided to go with 8 of us while there were only 5 of them. Numbers is always victorious. After many months later, we arrive at last to the future land. The future land is fertile, future land is green, future land has many animals to hunt, many berries to eat. All I can say is I hope that this new home was worth the journey.
The end. I mean, don't worry, this stuff washes off. Ooh, I really got shot in the leg there, hey? Ooh, that was painful, huh? Alright, so. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, this is true. This is how the migration out of Africa, as I theorize, happened. Now, I'm going to answer a few questions and explain a few things after the show that you might not have understood, or perhaps that need a bit of elaboration. So at the beginning, they left very gradually. One generation was only in the bridge between Africa and Asia, somewhere in the Middle East. And Gentle explained how about many generations ago, only then their ancestors left a rich and plentiful land, which was Africa. But they, of course, had no concept of continents back then. So why gradually? Because remember, it takes many generations to migrate over long distances, unless you seriously are a marathon runner, which we don't theorize our ancestors were. We theorize that what they did was, after leaving Africa, they would chase the herds and animals to different lands and different places. And so, of course, many of these animals would have crossed the bridge between Africa and Asia. So our ancestors simply followed where the food was. That's what they theorized was a big motivator to go out of Africa. But some people like me, I also theorize that curiosity, the beautiful, simple nature of us humans, our unchallengeable, mighty trait, curiosity. I think people simply saw a different land out there and they would have thought, wow, imagine if we go there, what lies ahead. So yeah, maybe they will kill you, maybe the Homo erectuses will kill you. But we find that actually Homo sapiens was top of the food chain, which leads me to my next point, is during the hunt, we saw that Gentle was, yes, worried about predators, but in general they were quite relaxed because they knew that with their inventions that they were strong. Something changed human history forever, when the throwing spear was invented, right over here. The throwing spear now enabled humans, instead of having to go right up close and personal to prey, they could now throw it from a distance. Did you know that this single event in history moved humans from under the food chain to the top of the food chain. That was where it happened, thanks to the throwing spears invention. They theorized roughly about 2 million years ago, time of Homo erectus. But now we go to my time, 70,000 BC, and they theorized this is when the bow and arrow were invented, roughly. So you heard over there in the story that Gentle mentioned that the bow and arrow was invented by his great-grandparents. Yes, I theorize that someone migrating out of Africa would have known personally who invented the bow and arrow. Sadly, that name is forgotten to history. We have no idea who invented it or exactly where it was invented, but many theorize that yes, roughly 70,000 BC is the earliest trace we can find of a bow and arrow in use, roughly around the Middle East.
And what they used before that?
Before that, they would have used their throwing spears and simply rocks. They theorize our ancestors took rocks and would throw rocks at prey as a way to try and hunt and deter animals.
When I was in myself, 1 meter ball, 2 stones of the big one.
Big ones, hey? Wow, incredible. Yeah, like I say, stones are very underestimated, and there's a reason it's called the Stone Age, because this is the age when humans were taking stones and making them into tools. Why walk? Why walk? As we saw in the story, Gentle talked about how they would go disheartened that they've lost their prey. Because remember, humans are not that fast compared to most of the animals they were contemporary with, like deer and gazelles. But what humans did is they would injure their prey with a bow and arrow and then track them and follow them, sometimes for many miles, until they found the animal weakened from blood loss. And they would simply just walk to it and finish it off and take it and eat it.
Just like that.
Humans, one of our huge advantages. Look at yourself, look at your skin. Are you guys looking at your hands and your skin? It's naked, yes? We are so naked compared to most animals on earth. Do you know why? Because we are the best walkers on earth. Be proud of that. Humans are the best walkers on earth because humans can walk for miles and miles and miles without stopping. Most animals would tire out by then. So humans, not able to outrun all other animals, but we were able to outwalk every other animal. Isn't that fascinating? And one adaptation to that is by losing our hair, which made us too hot, and the invention of sweating made us able to regulate our temperature and cool down much easily on the plains of Africa. My shoes. So one problem that comes with being naked is we're exposed to the elements a lot more. So one thing that our ancestors had to do is invent clothes to now recover ourselves. But this created a huge adaptability. We can now wear less clothes in hotter climates or more clothes in colder climates, which is another reason why humans were able to spread over all the earth. And I'll explain attire now, but first, another point I want to talk about is roots. Why out of Africa? Why? So as we explained, we more or less have theories as the motivation to leaving, curiosity, following food, better climate. But one such an interesting event is our DNA records can actually help us track when humans reached certain points. Did you know that humans only reached Europe in about 45,000 years ago, 45,000 BC? Humans only reached Australia and the Philippines about 20,000 BC. And they only reached the Americas about 10,000 BC. Isn't that fascinating, eh? So that is why when Christopher Columbus arrived in the Americas that have never been touched by Europeans except the Vikings, that's another story, they found humans. They found more humans. How is it possible that there were still humans across the ocean? Because of the peopling of Africa. 10,000 years ago, humans, Homo sapiens, left the bridge between Asia and Russia, near Kamchatka, and crossed into Alaska/North America and in South Americas. Fascinating, hey? So this is controversial, but technically the most evolved humans in the human race are the Native Americans and the South Americans. They're the most evolved in that sense. They left and arrived the most recently in history. But that's not really a true statement, but it's fun to think about. So yes, humans only reached Europe in about 45,000 BC. That is where humans entered Europe and basically found Neanderthalensis, Homo neanderthalensis, Neanderthals. So they, of course, drove Neanderthals into extinction because they were much more better suited to the climate, much more adaptive. Neanderthals were built stronger for colder climates, but Homo sapiens were smarter. They had a slightly bigger brain capacity, and this was the edge they had over Neanderthals. There's a theory that humans interbred with Neanderthals. That's where people theorize that the pale skin of Europeans comes from our Neanderthal ancestors. So there's an interesting point. Now, another thing I wanted to explain is war. War in the Paleolithic. I inserted war into the Paleolithic as an interesting thought experiment, a theory. There is no solid evidence that our ancestors fought each other in wars in the Stone Age. However, there are some little points of evidence. If you look at 𝐻𝐶 the Iceman, he was around 8,000 years ago. They found him, 8,000 BC, they found him buried with an arrow inside of him. And that is evidence that someone shot him.
Yeah.
Unless he shot himself with the bow and arrow, I'm not sure. No, yeah, anyway. So, the reason I think war did happen in the Paleolithic times is because look at Tyrannosaurus Rex. I know it's random. Why the T-Rex in the dinosaur age? Who was a T-Rex's biggest enemy? Was it the Diplodocus, Brachiosaurus, Triceratops? Not really, not really. A T-Rex's biggest enemy was itself, other T-Rexes. That posed the biggest threat to a T-Rex's life was another T-Rex, another male T-Rex. And just as T-Rex was the apex predator of the Cretaceous, so are humans the apex predators of the late Cenozoic, which we're in now. So I theorize that the only thing that's more threatening to a human is another human. And that's why it leads me to one last point, is I theorize that humans would have even tribalized themselves. They would have gone into different tribes. So I'm using color to signify tribe, the red tribe. Just like we fought the yellow ochre tribe, the yellow tribe made of ochre. They were our enemies, and they obviously would wear colors of yellow. In the red tribe, we wear colors of red to signify who we belong to. And I go even further to theorize, those paleontologists out there who are going to hate me for it, I'm theorizing this, is imagine if they even had a class ranking system. So I'm wearing 2 stripes to signify that I've been hunting for 2 years. So each season, each full season, I would add an extra stripe to my arm to signify how experienced I am, and that's a sign of respect in the tribe. This is something, of course, that we have zero evidence of and we'll never know for real. But why not get a bit, explore with these things? And these are little details that I find fascinating. And again, I'm wearing red ochre here to help. You see our ancestors being naked. Yes, clothing would help them, but also another thing that they would wear, and this leads me to now explaining the attire. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me say, I have a little surprise for all of you guys, a really cool little surprise I've brought for you. You guys want to see the surprise? Oh yeah. Before I show you the surprise, I thought let me explain the attire first. You're doing all right?
Yeah.
Oh, some Vicks, future. Shame, I'm so sorry. Just, drink it out.
Sorry.
All good. Okay, no problem. So, yes. Let me explain the attire. Humans, being naked, needed to cover themselves up. So, one thing we covered ourselves with were clothes. But before I explain the clothes, there's another thing our ancestors covered themselves with. Do you know what that is? Leaves? Probably not, but maybe. There is a theory that maybe humans made leaf clothing, but it's a bit hard to say. But no, there's something else that humans covered ourselves with back then. It is called ochre. Ochre is basically like a rock that if you grind it up, it creates a powder. It's basically iron oxide. And if you mix iron oxide with water, it creates a nice paste. I'm using ochre to create my paints. But they theorize that sometimes humans would take ochre and cover their whole bodies with it. all from head to toe, all the parts exposed to the sun. Yeah, yeah, exactly. In Basotho culture, they also do the same. During initiation, they cover themselves. Yes. So that's Basotho culture, but even going back to Paleolithic culture, humans cover themselves with ochre as a way of basically primitive sunblock. Yeah, our ancestors wore sunblock, but in the form of ochre. So starting from the bottom, I wear my leopard hide shoes, which basically are made out of leopard hide, tied around together using sinews. Remember, this is way before sewing was a thing. They say sewing only came about during the late Paleolithic / Neolithic. So in my time, 70,000 BC, I would not have been able to sew my clothes. So instead I'm wearing just strips of raw hide of leopard's fur, tied together using sinews like this. And going further up, the same thing. I'm wearing a form of a kilt using leopard furs that are tied up and gathered using sinews around my waist. And again, I'm wearing over here a sort of like a shawl that you can wear in many different styles, from the front to the top to cover your shoulders, or you can even wear it like this to give you a bit more protection against the sun. Or if you're hunting like I was in the play, in Gentle Story, I want my hunting arm free. And it's tied up using a leather strip over here, as you can see, to secure it up in place. And on my neck, I wear some extra fur from a different creature. And this is basically, can be worn as a headwear if it gets a bit cold at night or the sun is again scorching my head. So I theorize that humans wore all these things that they needed with them on their body. I can even use this as a pouch or something to carry berries or even meat. Now on my neck I wear a necklace over here, but this is a very special necklace. So have a look at my necklace, folks. This is a necklace I got from the Origins Museum at the Wits University. And it is based on a Bushman necklace. Fascinating, eh? And it's been used using traditional methods, and it's made out of horn and seeds. Yes, horn and seeds were very popular jewelry back in the Paleolithic. Not even as recent in Southern African history, but going back to Paleolithic history. Seeds and horn were popular items of jewelry, as well as shells. We find tons of shells in grave burials, everything. Shells were very popular. So yes, I wear a horn and seed necklace. Probably a personal item, maybe from being passed down the generations. And over here, we have the throwing spear. Yes, the throwing spear. So the throwing spear is, as I said, an invention that changed history forever. It's really revolutionized history. It made humans become the apex predator, and it's secured using leather strips that are wetted. So what you do is you wet the strips and you tie it around the shaft and the head of the spear, and when they dry they stiffen and tighten, making a very solid build. And another thing that was done is, in order to make little nubs or little what's the word, I suppose slits in the stone, you would take another stone and literally scrape it. Just scrape until you get a nice fine little nub. And you'd keep on scraping and scraping and scraping until it's big enough to tie the leather strips through. And there we go. The rest, that's how you make a Paleolithic spear. Fascinating, hey? And you'll obviously saw a bit of like cuts. They wouldn't have had saws back then, but they probably used something sharp to cut a bit of a slit into the stick and slide it into the slit and then cover it with the rest. The rest is history. And over here is the bow and arrow, the bows and arrows. So this is just a typical bow and arrow. We don't really know what the bows and arrows looked like back then because none survive, but we have evidence of shafts and tips. But they theorized that bows and arrows could go back even earlier because they theorized that the earliest bows and arrows didn't use stone bits. They would have just been pure wood sharpened. That's why they don't survive. There's nothing to survive from bows and arrows. So that's why they theorized that, yeah, just sharpened wood was probably the earliest bow and arrow used back then, until they decided, let's put a stone on it to sharpen stone. All right. So, now it's time for the surprise. You guys want to see the surprise now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me go grab it. Edible. But before I show you the edible thing, here's the first surprise. True or false? In the Paleolithic, humans had movies. They watched movies. True or false? You're obviously going to say false, hey? I would have also said false if I was you. Did you know they actually did watch movies?
Oh.
In my hand, I have something they uncovered and excavated from the Paleolithic.
Assistance of vision.
I've reprinted it and laminated it, but basically it's a stone with a deer on one side with legs in a certain position, and on the other side it's the same deer but the legs are in a different position. So what you do is you take the stone and you spin it. You give it spin. Like I say, it should be a real stone. It doesn't work well on my laminated, but as you see, as you spin it, you'll see that the deer runs because its legs are moving to and fro as each frame is passed of the stone. And that was the closest thing our ancestors had to a movie back then. It's the same principle as a movie. Still pictures put together to create a moving picture.
The case
So,
of the
yes.
skull, 6 legs.
Oh yes. Basically, yes. Thank you, Neil. So they theorize it could have even been worn as a necklace as well. So they could even wear their movies. Fascinating, hey? All right. So here's the surprise. What did our ancestors eat during the Paleolithic? That is a very good question, because you are what you eat. The famous saying is very true. So we have direct evidence as to what they ate. Do you guys want to see what they ate?
Yeah.
All right. First up, berries.
Oh wow. That's
Yes, berries. Ladies and gentlemen, our ancestors ate berries. Our ancestors ate berries. Over here I've got raspberries, which we have evidence that they ate. The specific berries are raspberries. Would you guys like to try a raspberry? Anyone interested to try and eat some Paleolithic food? Here we go. Just take if you want, take if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. So berries formed a fundamental part of Paleolithic diet. And berries were easy to find and scavenge for, and you don't have to farm to eat them. Here we go. Would you also like a raspberry? Here's a raspberry. Would you like one? No. Humans did not farm until the Neolithic. They say the Neolithic began about 10,000 BC. That was where the Paleolithic ended and the Neolithic began. And the Neolithic was where the revolution of farming began. They call the Ubaid period in the Middle East, where humans started to first farm. And so farm foods were not available to humans right through the whole of the Paleolithic. Did you know the Paleolithic started roughly about 2 million years ago when the first tools were being invented? And the Paleolithic ended 10,000 BC. So that literally makes the Paleolithic 99% of human history. This is the Paleolithic. Here's everything else. The Neolithic, the Industrial Revolution, the modern time, the world wars, the ancient times, the ancient Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, the Persians, the everything. Everything fits there. There's that. And then here's the Paleolithic. Insane, hey? So it just shows how important the Paleolithic is, which is why I've brought you the history today. So next up is to what they ate. Seeds. Here we go. Let me open it up for you guys. Here. There we go. So again, because of the foraging nature of humans, seeds were a very, very popular food to eat back during the Paleolithic times. Yeah, sunflower seeds in this case. Feel free to grab a few if you want. Feel free to grab a few. And guys, when you eat it, yes, I'm sure you've eaten seeds before, but just picture your great ancestors eating the same thing that we're eating today. And how fortunate we are to have access to that food in these days. Amazing, hey? So yeah, feel free to all grab a few seeds and yeah, it's spoiling you all a little bit. I know it's not sweet, but if our ancestors had sweets back then, here we are. If our ancestors had sweets back then, we would find that they would have no teeth after that. Thank goodness, thank goodness. Okay, next up on the list is nuts. Here we go. Just don't grab if you're allergic to nuts, alright? So again, being hunter-gatherers, humans also would have eaten nuts. They would have found wild nuts all over and they would have taken them, gathered them and eaten them. I theorize that while on the hunt, they would have taken things like berries, nuts and seeds with them as like padkos, as you say in Afrikaans, padkos, like road food. Food to take with you while you hunt. Yeah, go ahead, have a few if you want. Sure. Okay, very good. You also want a couple almond nuts? There we go. You also want some almonds. And yeah, the specific nuts that I gave you here are almonds. Almonds, I used to think, go back to antiquity. You know how obsessed the Greeks were over almonds? There was a multi-million, in our days, dollar trade over almonds. Nope. Paleolithic times they were eating almonds. Another thing is grapes.
Oh, yeah.
Grapes, yes. If you're wondering, grapes, nah, surely they don't eat grapes. Not, they ate grapes. But they would have eaten wild grapes. We find that cultivated grapes are a little bit different, more domesticated than wild grapes. But so bear with me over there. They would have had wild grapes back then. So yeah, feel free to grab a couple grapes. Just yank it off. There we go. Also want a grape as well. Another thing they would have done is dried their meat. So dried meat was a very popular on the menu in the Paleolithic, because especially going out of Africa, they would have been traveling and walking a lot. So dried meat keeps very well. So as you can see, folks, our ancestors in the Paleolithic ate quite well and quite healthy. And it's actually recommended to eat a Paleolithic diet nowadays. Oh yeah, I'll break it. Here we go. There we go. Also, okay, here we are. Have some grapes. Also want some grapes. There we go. Would you guys like some grapes?
I like it.
Have some grapes. There we go. I'll pop them over there. Okay, sure. Just lay grapes. See, grapes for everyone, all my cavemen. So did you guys enjoy that?
Yeah.
Quite incredible to just see, to not only see what our ancestors used to do through the play and what 𝐿 went through in his adventure, but also to taste what they tasted is something quite different, hey? So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
So stay tuned for the next show. We are going